Welcome to the latest episode of Before Floor. I am your host, Greg Sylvander. We're getting you ready for the pretty big matchup tonight with the Utah Jazz coming into Miami. The 7-1 Utah Jazz meet the 6-2 Miami Heat. So we have live from the arena Brady Hawk. He is so live on set. He actually, before we went live, told me that he's 10 feet from Donovan Mitchell. So he's probably trying to keep his voice down. I see him on mute, but he's on site there. And then we also have our esteemed panelist always here, and that is Ricky J. Mark. So thank you for joining us. But before we dive into the show, I want to tell you a bit about the great sponsors here at 5 Reasons Sports Network. And I want to kick it off with Biscayne Bay Brewing. They are the only independent brewery in South Florida. They're building a tap house right here in Miami. You guys know Biscayne Bay Brewing. They are the official beer of the Miami Marlins of 5 Reasons Sports Network. Some of the really big time favorites are the Pastime Pilsner, Tropical Bay IPA, Marlins Lager, Miami Pale Ale. Ask for them by name when you're at your local pub. Definitely ask for Biscayne Bay Brewing. They are one of our long-time sponsors here of the pregame show. And the other sponsor that we want to tell you guys about is Mark Brown PA. So for all of your legal needs, if you need anything related to estate planning, whether you're single, whether you have a family, these are things that you need to do to ensure that you have a plan for your future in place. So reach out to Mark Brown PA. He's located right there in South Florida. I think he's up near Ethan in Broward, but if you call him, mention 5 Reasons, you'll definitely get your free case evaluation. That's at 954-566-5678. And, Ethan swears by this gentleman. I haven't had the opportunity to meet him yet, but I've heard nothing but great things. So if you need anything, an experienced lawyer to protect your property, real estate, estate planning, go to Mark Brown PA. You can find him online on Twitter. He's an avid Miami Heat fan, but at 954-566-5678. So now let's dive into this matchup, gentlemen. This is, as I was working on some pre-show notes, to me, this is probably the toughest matchup the Heat have had so far this season. I mean, if any team that started this year can come out and say that they feel just as good as everybody else, like if there's any team that's had just as good a start as Miami, it's Utah, right? Before we dive into like the implications of the matchup, Brady, updates on lineups, injuries, that kind of stuff, anything you've heard recently from the arena?
Yeah, the only one is Kyle Lowry intends to play, which is interesting. But the only thing is we heard that the other day with Bam Adebayo, and he didn't end up playing. So it's not a for sure. It's just looking good right now, which is pretty crazy. I did not expect him to even be listed as questionable when that happened the other day when they rolled up on his ankle. So that's pretty intriguing just from a perspective of improving the injury or just his body. And then obviously Donovan Mitchell and Royce O'Neal are the same, intending to play as well.
And so, yes, I think there's still so we feel more clarity about Utah than we do Miami at this point, because you're right. Like that Lowry thing, I think will come down to the buzzer, and I'll be super excited if he does play. Ricky, I'll take this to you because, I kind of teed up the show is that Utah is the one team that's had just as good a start as Miami, and even some of the metrics lean in their direction. If you could point to one thing Heat fans should feel good about going into this matchup, and one thing that they should be concerned about quickly, I'd love to hear both of those, the polarities there from your perspective.
Sure. I think let's start with the positive. In terms of good, this team is still the collective that started 6-2. They had a really bad game, which I consider to be an aberration against Boston the other night. I think they'll come back strong. And considering, you got a lot of proud guys on this team, nobody wants to repeat another blowout loss like they did last game. So I think they're going to come out strong and they're going to come out unified and working on a lot of the mistakes that doomed them last time around, especially the ones they have control over, such as turnovers. The potentially bad thing, I think it depends on Kyle Lowry's health. We all know what his role is in terms of pushing the tempo of this team and dictating the offense on more than one occasion. If he is healthy, I think Miami is in a much better position to take this game. But we also have to worry about Donovan Mitchell. I see 3 scenarios with him. One where he plays is amazing all-star wannabe Wade Mitchell. one where he plays but is limited, and one where he doesn't play, but you still have to worry about the rest of the guys who are playing for him, as the cliche likes to go. So I mean, at this point, those are the situations I feel Miami has to deal with. I think they've got a good chance tonight, but we'll have to see what happens at tip off.
Yeah, you bring up Donovan Mitchell, and he's spearheading a really potent offense. Nekias Duncan tweeted something related to the shot profile of the Utah Jazz and how many corner threes they're getting. Brady, I'm interested to pick your brain here. The Jazz have made 10 or more threes in 86 consecutive games. That's a streak. It started in the bubble. It's the second longest streak in NBA history, behind the 97 game streak of the Rockets in from 2018 to 2020. That's 10 or more threes in 86 consecutive games. Nekias Duncan talked about the corner threes that they're getting, and they haven't been hitting them yet. But is defending the three, how concerned are you with that as it relates to Miami versus Utah tonight?
Yeah, I think back to the other night against Boston, what Boston did to Miami, which was they were just helping from the corners. Like, they were leaving corner shooters open, like PJ Tucker, Jimmy Butler. They were just mucking up the paint the entire time and make sure to put a bunch of bodies in there, not letting you score on the interior. This team has Rudy Gobert, so it's going to be pretty similar with that, and you probably don't have to drop as low on the corners. But I think from Miami's perspective, you want to do something similar. If they're not going to drop, Heat fans are going to say they're going to fall tonight, just because of that's what happens with what happens when they play Miami, I guess. But I think that's what you're going to see similar. I think you're going to try to make them early, make the corner three. Obviously not leave it open totally, but you're not going to let Donovan Mitchell, if he's playing it the way we know he does, you're not going to let him attack the rim all night. And I think maybe we see Jimmy on him to start. It's kind of interesting the way they can go about it this year compared to last year, where it was like one matchup for Donovan Mitchell. This year they have so many. So I think that'll be kind of the difference maker in stopping Utah from scoring. And I don't think either team scoring 90 tonight, because these are two top three defenses. Like, this is going to be probably a low scoring night.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because they're second and seventh in points scored overall. So I mean, and I know that that's a counting stat to some degree these days in the league. Alex Toledo's always trying to push me in the direction of the more advanced metrics, but just by virtue of that, I mean, 113 and 111, you would think that they could score, but you're right, the defenses are in place. And to that point, I want to slide into a bench matchup, because this is a team that has an interesting bench, Utah, and we've talked about some of the strengths of Miami's bench to start the season, spearheaded by Tyler and all the things Dwayne Dedmon has done. So I want to focus on one matchup. And Ricky, I'll start with you here. Hassan Whiteside is at a bit of a renaissance in Utah so far to start the season. He's fitting in a winning team, averaging the most rebounds, blocks, and I think, the best box plus minus off the bench of any player in the league so far, if I have that correct. But Dwayne Dedmon has been a real spark plug for this team. And I think it's something that even other teammates have talked about in some of the post-game pressers. They reference how Dwayne Dedmon has played. Talk about that matchup a little bit off the bench. And then how the hell are they going to slow down Jordan Clarkson? I think Clarkson and Hero is another interesting bench dynamic.
I think Clarkson will run either hot or cold. That's been his MO his whole career. With regards to Hassan Whiteside, I'm not very impressed by the early season production, because you're not going to be able to play either Whiteside or Gobert in the playoffs once things get tight. I mean, especially if you're dealing with a team that likes to run and likes to spread the floor, neither of them are going to be playable, as we saw last year. With regards to the bench, I think when you look at the way Miami is set up, it really will be a battle of wits and a battle of wills, as corny as that might sound. I mean, Tyler's been on an impressive run thus far this season. He too is a little wounded after that Boston game. I expect him to come back strong. This really is going to be a fascinating matchup, because when you look at the fact that you're dealing with a bench that has a couple award winners or runner-ups on it in Utah, and a bench that could very well make the case for awards this season in Miami, there might be a bad turnover that could decide this game, especially when you're talking about a low-scoring game like Brady mentioned. Sometimes it's not always the team that quote-unquote played the best that wins. It could be the team that made the least amount of mistakes and maybe even got lucky with a bad call here or there. Things happen. We're just going to have to see what happens. I wish I could tell you that one side had a distinct advantage over the other, but given how Miami has played, given how Utah has had a certain sustained level of excellence, not just so far this year, but the last few years, it's going to be very interesting to see how these two relatively evenly matched teams go at it tonight.
So Brady, because I know you already have your 5 takeaways from this game in the drafts, even though the game hasn't been played. You tell us, of the things that the Heat can control, because Ricky kind of alluded to so much that is kind of beyond our control, and you don't know how it's going to play out, right? But what would you say going into this game is the number one thing you're looking for Miami to hone in on and really focus on? For me, like the dead giveaway is getting back to that same pace that they've been playing at and start to see the offense humming. But I'm interested from your perspective, what you're looking for from Miami that they can control tonight.
Yeah, I think it's mostly the bench where you look. We talked about Denman versus Whiteside and Hero versus Clarkson. I think it's a mixture of both where it's Hero versus Whiteside. Like, Hero's going to see a lot of time against Whiteside on the floor where Hero does very, very well against drop, and especially with the mid-range falling the way it is this season, where this feels like a Tyler Hero game, like written all over it. Like, he's going to get to his spots. He's still able to – I don't want to say just because of the Boston game, because he's able to do things against switching defenses this season. That was just a different type of awful offensive night. But against drop, he's just able to get to his spots. He's much more comfortable. He said it himself that this feels like a night with whoever's on the floor. He's going to be able to, between Gobert and Whiteside, get to his spots in the mid-range. And if he's hitting them, it's going to be a huge plus for Miami, especially if Kyle Lowry, as you mentioned, is able to push the pace and play to them.
Yeah. So Ricky, is it hyperbole? Is it cliche to say that on the verge of a West Coast road trip that the Heat need to get this one? I'm not saying it's a must win. That's ridiculous this early in the year. They're not 9-8 with Bumpgate in Dallas. It's nothing like that at all. The vibes around this team are great, but is there validity to them getting this one before they head out west? Do you think that how important is that?
I think it's very important. I think for a team that is quite literally they just recently assembled this team. This is, for all intents and purposes, a team that is still kind of learning each other a little bit. I think you want them to win a game like this, especially after that bad taste that Boston came and left in their that bad taste in their mouths that they had. Basically, the way this plays out is, I think if they get this win, it'll be very helpful considering who's waiting for them out west. Now, granted, the Clippers, I'm not as scared of the Clippers in terms of NBA contention, but they still got Paul George and some guys on that team that could really make people pay if they're not careful. You got LA, who, I mean, the real LA team, the Lakers. They're missing LeBron most likely on the night in which Miami comes to play them, but look, I wouldn't mess around with all that talent. They've been relatively terrible by their standards this year, but you don't want to do that. Miami would do well to end this homestand with a win, go out on the road, get some more wins, come together as a team even more, and hopefully by the time this Heat team returns to the FTX arena, they'll be as healthy as can be and ready to go on another stretch run.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to see this team just embark upon this road trip in one piece. Like, I think that's the important takeaway. Like I said in a group chat on Twitter that some of us are in, that it would tell me more about Miami if they got this one after losing a tough one to Boston and heading out west than if they dropped it. But that's just probably the biased Heat fan in me. Let's go around quickly with predictions for tonight, as well as I'd love to know. So Utah, Miami, in Miami, not in Utah. The games in Utah we shall not speak of. The games in Miami, and Ricky probably can go into his historical Rolodex and remember a few of them. They typically tend to have some fun stuff, whether it be buzzer beaters, double overtimes, Paul Millsap going crazy, Dwayne Wade hitting game winners. There's all kinds of memories. So there's usually something electrifying that happens in a Jazz Heat matchup. So I'm excited about that. I'd like to know what you guys are looking for in terms of what player is going to jump off the page for us tonight and make a huge impact, and then your predictions for tonight. Brady, go.
Yeah, I mentioned Tyler Hero before, but I think the guy to mention is Jimmy Butler. Like, we know what Jimmy Butler does after bad games. And looking at the stat sheet the other night doesn't even do it justice. He did not play very well. Like missing free throws, bad offense just leads to bad opportunities for him. So kind of following that up with a game tonight, we know what he did after the game against Indiana when he played really badly. That's kind of been that was the start of his MVP case to start the year. So I think after another one like that, this feels like a game. They have some bodies to throw at Jimmy, but I don't think it's enough. I think if he just gets to what he does best, gets to the rim, I think that's what he does. I think Miami wins.
Ricky, the Heat are 1.5 point favorites. Tell me how you're feeling about the game and the player to watch.
I'm going to take a page out of Brady's book. I think this could potentially be the Duncan Robinson game, especially considering, I think he was, 5 for 17?
Yep.
In the last game?
Yep. Tied the most 3-point field goal attempts in a game for a Heat player with Wayne Ellington in that game.
That makes sense considering it was Wayne. I think he goes off tonight, and I think it starts early. That loosens everybody up. It allows Jimmy to attack the basket and get Gobert into early foul trouble. But I think this one will potentially hinge on Duncan Robinson. I think he will be the catalyst for some of the other guys on this team.
Yeah, for me, I think the Heat got this one out, and the player of the game undoubtedly shall be Dwayne Dedmon because of his matchup, and you know why I'm picking him. And that's all we're going to say about that. Read between the lines as you will. But yeah, I think the Heat get this one. And let's hope they do before they head out on the West Coast trip. But I'm really interested. I think it'll be a great matchup. So we're going to go ahead and wrap here. I think that there could be additional content flowing behind me, but not sure. It's a Saturday, and a lot of people we have different producers on set. Ethan's not here. I mean, what's the phrase? When the cat's away, the mouse will play, or whatever.
I might even sing. Who knows?
So who knows what's going to happen on the channel is where I'm going with that. But where I want to close is, don't forget, ask for Biscayne Bay Brew whenever you are in your local spots there in South Florida. And whenever you're at a Heat game, a Marlins game, they're the official beer of the Miami Marlins and 5 Reasons Sports. And then Mark Brown, PA, reach out to him for all your legal needs, including all the real estate stuff. With the housing market up and down. He's another person you can pick his brain for that kind of stuff. Mark Brown, PA. You can follow him on Twitter. Thank you for joining us. We are going to have Post Up. We're going the Post Up show on the YouTube channel. 5 on the Floor will post with Brady and Alex live on site at FTX Arena. Thank you for joining us. And unlike Ethan, I will end the broadcast by saying, let's go Heat.
Not bad.
Hey, Ben. A night like this, do you have to learn from it, or is there a certain balance between looking at what went wrong and just saying it's one of those nights, forget it, move on?
Obviously we're gonna go over film, see what we did wrong, see where we could have executed better. But our main thing is to move on.
To that end, what they did against you was sort of what you do against a lot of other teams, the way they were switching and clocking and things like that. I mean, was that a little bit different for you guys to get into your offense? Even though you guys do it, I assume, in practice, were they more effective, or were you just not making the right pass, not making the right shots?
I just feel like we weren't making shots. That's really the biggest difference in the game. We had a lot of open shots we should have made, and then I feel like we just missed a lot of open ones that we normally make.
Yeah, there were obviously a lot of different offensive issues tonight, but the few transition points today, have you seen teams slowly start to adjust to maybe like those leak outs that you guys were getting the past few games and the pitch aheads? And all? In what ways have you seen kind of defenses adjust to what you guys have been doing early on?
It's one game, so let's calm down. It's one game, but the people as the season go on are definitely going to start scouting our leak outs and telling their team to get back.
All right, thank you, Bam.
Black Lives Matter, people.
their defense was the story last night. Their defense, again, the story tonight. Is this a night where you tip your cap to that, flush some of the stuff you guys did, or did you see some slippage on the offensive end?
I mean, probably a lot of things are true. They did play really well. Defensively, you do have to give Boston credit. That's probably as poorly as we've played offensively, all season, including preseason and training camp. But those nights are going to happen. Sometimes it's going to be ugly offensively. Sometimes teams are going to take you out of what you normally do. We've been in a great groove offensively, and we just didn't play the way we've been accustomed to playing. The mistakes and the turnovers obviously were a factor, and some missed shots at key times, and then where they just took us out of some things, and we've jammed up some possessions and weren't able to capitalize on what they were trying to do.
As a quick follow, I know you just came off.
Yeah.
Did you see Kyle and any? I mean, I know they said sprain, but did you?
Yeah, we'll find out tomorrow. I know him well enough that it's very similar to Jimmy. You ask him how he's doing, he's like, yeah, fine. But we'll have to see how it responds.
Eric, with their switching defense and the way, especially the hit-ahead passes, they were there for almost every turn. Is this a matter of now you have a certain style and now teams have gone to school on that certain style?
We'll find out. But the league is constantly going to adjust. It's not like whatever we're doing now that this is just going to be, it for the rest of the season. You have to continue to adjust and do things sharper, do things with more purpose, more intention. And you just have to credit Boston tonight, and we'll learn from this and get better.
Specifically in that second quarter, the 10 turnovers, was it as simple as their switching defense kind of limiting opportunities at the rim and maybe forcing?
I think a lot of things were true. I think their switching flattened us out. I think we held the ball, a little bit on some possessions. And I think some of the turnovers were just very uncharacteristic. Missed catches, miscues on passes where guys were open. So I think all those things played a part, but they capitalized on that, and they were able to create some separation. But it's not the first time or the only time we're going to face those kind of schemes.
Not related to tonight, but Victor Oladipo's injury. Is there any update on his status?
I do not have an update for you.
Practice still.
I do not have an update for you.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.